Hi everyone, Dr. Scott Sigman here, inviting you to check out some great information at the Business of Medicine session at the upcoming OSET Orthopedic Summit meeting. The session is sponsored by Veradigm and will run from 7 to 10:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Wednesday, September 18th in the Caprice 6 and 7 rooms at the new Fontainebleau Hotel in fabulous Las Vegas. So this is a super cool episode, one of the give back episodes of the Ortho Show. We're having Solomon Wilcots on, who's a dear friend of mine. He's an NFL analyst for Sirius XM, and he's also in the healthcare space. He works for Russo Partners, and we've done a lot of work together combining, sharing the messaging about a lot of really important healthcare items. For example, Zilretta with Pacira, also the Macy cartilage procedure for varicella, and most recently, the Bear ACL, which I'm super fond of for Mioc as well. But we're going to talk about fantasy football. We're going to give you some tips and pearls for your upcoming fantasy football lineups. So we give you the history of Solomon, but a lot of great takes on the upcoming NFL season. You're definitely going to want to watch this episode. Dr. Scott Sigman, hashtag follow the fro.
From Medical Media, this is The Ortho Show.
Hello, world. Dr. Scott Sigman, your favorite opioid-sparing orthopedic surgeon, here for another episode of the Ortho Show podcast, where everyone knows we bring you the best of the best in orthopedics. We're giving back today. We're doing a little special episode. We're not going to be talking to an orthopedic surgeon, but we're going to give you some NFL feedback here as we roll into the upcoming NFL season. We want to provide you fantasy football lovers some tips and pearls on what may be going on this coming year. We have my dear friend Solomon Wilcots on. Solomon is an NFL analyst for Sirius XM. The opening drive is where you find him. He's also a team leader for the Sports Health Alliance for Russo Partners, which is one of the leading PR firms in healthcare and technology. He is a former NFL player for the Cincinnati Bengals, the Vikings, and the Steelers, and he is my good friend, Solomon Wilcots. How are you, brother?
You know what, Scott? Hey, it's great. Look, you and I have tag teamed so much, doing so many broadcasts together. Podcast. It's great to see you and great to be working with you.
No, I think it's fantastic. So look, we're talking orthopedics here, and I see in your abduction pillow, we're going to give a little shout out to our friend, Dr. Paul Favorito. You're only a few days out from your surgery. How you feeling?
Up until this morning, I was groggy. I didn't know I'm playing hurt today. I didn't know if I was going to be. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it. But Paul Fabrito is the best, not one of the best. He is the best when it comes to shoulder replacement surgery. It's not the surgery you want to get. This is one that you beg him to do it. That's how, because you get to that point, and he and I are also members of the same country club. So as good of a doctor as he is, he's equally a great golfer. He's our club champion. So this guy is a winner either way.
I have a rule when it comes to getting surgery, okay, Solomon? You always check the handicap of your surgeon, right? Because if he's a scratch golfer, he's not operating enough, he's playing too much golf. But Paul Favorito is the exception to that rule, right?
He's an outlier. There's no doubt.
He is a scratch golfer and he is a scratch surgeon. And I'll tell you right now, my shoulder's starting to ache too. I may be flying out to Cincinnati as well. That's all I can tell you, brother. So I'll keep an eye on you. I'm going to see how you do first.
Okay.
I love it. Listen, man, we always start at the beginning. Just tell us, where'd you grow up? We know you went to the Colorado Buffaloes for your football, but tell us where you grew up and how you wound up there.
I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I was one of those kids. I was just one of these football nerds. I played sports as a youth, mostly basketball and football. But I loved playing sports. I loved coaches. I loved being around coaches because I just thought they could make me better. And I knew what I wanted to do with my life. So I said, man, if I could learn as much as these coaches are willing to teach me, I think everything was doable. And so I was able to go to a really good high school. We ended up coming one game shy of the state championship down in Southern California. We was just one game shy. We lost to state championship game. But, I left that field with my head up high because a week later I signed a scholarship to go to the University of Colorado. And we were able to turn it into something good. We were able to beat Nebraska before I left. I can tell you that. So that was really great. And then I was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the 8th round. And I was really disenchanted, Scott, because in 1987, if you go check the records, that was the last time the NFL had a player strike. So I made the team, but 2 weeks later I was out of a job. So you know what I did? I said, I got to go get a real job. This NFL stuff, it's an acronym, which means not for long.
Exactly.
So I went and got a real job. I got into this management training program for an insurance firm, and I began to build up my business skills. And every year during the off season, even though I played 7 years in the NFL, every year in the off season, I went to American Modern Home Insurance Group. I would work as a claims adjuster, as an underwriter in financial services. And we had a management group that was very forthcoming with teaching me everything I needed to know. And so that's kind of how my life was during my playing days. I worked all year round. I never had an off season.
Well, that's really smart. It's a really sad story, but we hear it quite frequently for retired professional athletes, not just in the NFL, but who basically who get lost after their professional career. They haven't built, a business sort of mind around them, and unfortunately, many of them, are not doing well financially. So that's really a smart play on your part, for sure.
Yeah, the late great Jackie Robinson said that the athlete dies twice. So imagine you as a young man, you come out of medical school, and then a few years after practicing, they strip you of your medical license and you can't practice anymore. Somebody say, okay, what are you going to do now? You're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I poured everything into this. And so that's what Jackie Robinson talks about, is that the athletes, we know that that's a skill set that's not going to allow us to have longevity. So we ought to also be putting our time into other things that would give us a longer shelf life and give us a career long after we're done playing.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that career for you as you moved on, but I got to ask you about playing in the Super Bowl with Boomer. I mean, come on, that had to have been a highlight of your career. I know it didn't work out exactly well, but still, playing in the Super Bowl had to have been awesome.
Yeah, every now and then I pinch myself because I got to play in one of the greatest games. The Super Bowl is obviously at the highest level that you can ever play in a football game, right? And I got to do it against some iconic players like Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, who I idoled and I worshipped and adored him because I went to high school in Riverside, California, and got to know him when I was in high school and in college. And he was so great to me and helping me to prepare for the NFL. Then here I am playing against the guy, and so it was one of those games that I think it was 6-6 at halftime. We were shutting down that great 49er offense, and then Joe Montana, he kind of went Joe Montana on us. As soon as the fourth quarter comes around, he becomes a different guy. It's like a superhero who came out of a phone booth. That's Joe Montana.
Yeah, I know some people might get mad at me, but I'm a New England guy, so Joe Montana's the second best quarterback in the history of the NFL. I gotta send my love to Tom. It is what it is, brother.
I will tell you this: if you quietly ask Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, because they both grew up in Northern California, they grew up watching those 49ers teams. Both of those guys highly revere Joe Montana, and they don't put anyone above Montana, even themselves. So I still believe Joe is in that rarefied air, and here's why. He played in 4 Super Bowls and won all 4. Do you know he never threw an interception in one of those Super Bowls? So he still is one of those rare treasures. But yeah, Tom has 7, and he did it with 2 different teams. I don't think there's anything Tom hasn't accomplished.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any doubt. And we're not going to talk about Bill. We'll see if Bill comes back. I got to tell you, man, he's a history guy, right? So, he wants that number 1 winningest coach of all time. So we'll see how he does in the booth, this year. We'll see what he's going to do on his show. But my guess is he's auditioning right now, trying to get back into a coaching spot, but we'll see.
Yeah, he'll be fine. he is the greatest of all time. And there's no doubt this guy, he's forgotten more football than most of us know. And I called a lot of his games. I got to meet with him on many different occasions. And, I found that, he holds everything close to the vest. He's not going to let you see his hand, all right? If he's playing blackjack, But if you start to talk about the history of the game, he might show you a card or two.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. And both he and Tom Brady seem to be dating girls the same age these days. So I'm not sure we're going to go there either. We'll leave that
I think
alone.
they call that you're enjoying the sweet nectar of life. This is. I think they feel like they've worked hard enough, and they should be celebrating a little bit. And that's kind of how I'm chalking that one up.
Yeah, God bless them. It's all good. So listen, brother, you had 8 years in the NFL, right? You were working throughout, which I think is really quite unique. No off season for you. You were looking and thinking about your future, and you've become, an incredible voice within the NFL as far as analyzing and analyst is concerned. And you started early on with reporting and broadcasting, sort of right after your career. So give us a little bit of segue as to how that happened for you too.
Yeah, I remember when my mom was driving me to the airport at LAX to fly to Boulder, Colorado, to go off to school. And I remember asking me, she says, "So what do you want to do with this thing? What are you?" It was the first time she only asked me that. What do I want to do with my life? And I said, "Well, I want to be a sports reporter. I want to be a broadcaster." And she said, "But you don't talk." Just
Go ahead.
That's how mothers are. They
Right.
they cut right to the chase. She knew me. I had three older brothers and a dad, so I didn't get to talk a whole lot. So, but I told her, I said, "No, Mom, it's gonna work out. Don't worry about it." But so when I was done playing, I was working for the insurance company, and I had a mentor of mine who was our chief counsel, our senior counsel, and he said, "Hey, you always wanted to work in television. I think you ought to give it a try." He said, "You can always come back and work here." He said, "You'd be kicking yourself if you never even tried it." That's when it kind of resonated with me. I really did want to do that. I felt I had the skill set. I did need work because I didn't have the experience. And so I went over to our local NBC affiliate and knocked on the door. They took pity on me. They said, "You can work for free." They said I came in as an unpaid intern. But because of my writing and I learned how to edit, so the writing and editing allowed me to be a producer. And as long as you're a good storyteller and you can understand how to help other people, like our anchors and our reporters, to log the news of the day and turn or coming through the door to be able to turn those around very quickly. I found a place within WOWT Channel 5 in Cincinnati. I found a place there, and it just rapidly sort of progressed. I became an on-air reporter, then an on-air sports anchor, and I loved every minute of it. I spent my whole life there. I would have been happy, but 5 years later, I get a call from ESPN. I found myself auditioning with Stuart Scott, and
That's awesome.
at that point in time, I'm thinking this is something's bigger happening here for me, and so I took advantage of it. I was hired to work there, and I became the sideline reporter for Sunday Night Football with Mike Patrick, Joe Theismann, and Paul McGuire. These guys became, my big brothers in the business. And then 3 years later, after winning a sports Emmy, I got a call from CBS Sports to move into the broadcast booth. So my career it sort of developed incrementally, so that by the time I ended up in the broadcast booth, I felt like I could do everything. I could be a sports reporter. I covered all sports. I covered Major League Baseball. I covered NBA, college hoops. I covered I had a wide range of things. I remember covering, a court case once, in Chicago. I had to go into federal court and cover the case. When you're in local TV, you don't get to pick your assignment. They hand you the assignment. You just better make it happen or don't come back, So it really prepared me. And I've had a life of 30 years of working in broadcast television at the local level, at the national level, even internationally at Sky Sports in London, where I've had a blast working there for 3 years. So it's been a great run.
Yeah, when I think of Solly Wilcots, I think of storytelling and I think of relationships and just an incredible memory, right? we walk down, we'll share that now. I mean, one of the next phases that you've done is really sort of gone to this public relations space within the healthcare, and I think it's awesome. David Schul is a dear friend of both of ours, sort of crossing over the healthcare technology space with the professional sports, combination. And there was nothing cooler for me than walking around in Super Bowl Radio Row with Solomon Wilcots and sort of talking to these, radio and TV, hosts and analysts from across the country. And everybody knows, Solomon Wilcots. And what a great time that was. And so you and I, we've done some great stuff. We did the MEOC, the new Bear ACL that I've been doing a bunch of at this point with great results. And you've done Vericel with Macy cartilage, with cartilage transplant. We did the Zilretta gig for Pacira.
That's right.
So tell us about that. I mean, it's become a sort of the next phase of your career as well.
Yeah, and it started about almost 10 years ago. We're creeping up on my 10-year anniversary with Russo Partners. And David Scholl, the president of Russo Partners, we're a public relations firm working, as you know, with biotech and pharmaceutical companies, mid-cap size companies, and we're based out of New York. And I was calling a game in Miami. I was doing a Dolphins game, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow night?" I think it was like Saturday night, the night before my game. He was like, "I have a client that's going to be here. I think you might be able to help us out with something. I would love for you to come to dinner with us." And so the client pretty much was looking to sort of fill out their enrollment for a clinical trial for a drug that they were testing for Alzheimer's patients. Not up until recently, right? Eli Lilly, they cracked the code, right? They were able to get one through, but I think we hadn't had anything approved for for that indication, over the last 30 years or so for Alzheimer's. So I remember just sitting at the table. This was a lot of information that was going over my head, Scott. I got to tell you,
Yeah, of
that
course.
was the first, that was the first time I'm hearing of all of this. But I was fascinated. More importantly, I was curious. And so I started to think about how can we take a lot of this information and make it digestible for the everyday person? How can we tell this story that would energize people to participate? And so I give me a week or so, send me all your materials, and I wanted to read over it. And it was around that time when the movie Concussion came out. Remember that?
Sure.
And so that was sort of top of mind for everyone in the world of sports. People were now very curious as to, sort of these cognitive degeneration, these diseases that impacted people, and what role did sports have to play in it, if any at all, right? And you had to think about dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ALS. All of these things sort of came into it. And so within a week's time, I was able to get my mind wrapped around it. And I said, CTE, it's not Alzheimer's, it's not those other things, but they're correlated. Like they're somehow, obviously they're neurocognitive degeneration. What if we could go to the Super Bowl where we'll have an audience of former players, current players, and coaches that would want to hear the story of how we're offering opportunities for former players to participate in a clinical trial. All they have to do is just, provide a blood sample. We were kind of thinking that maybe tau, as you know what tau zones are, if that crosses the blood-brain barrier and is found in the blood, maybe you could test posthumously, right? Or excuse me, you can test before you die, before you enter that phase, because now you can only test posthumously. But maybe you can test before you die, and maybe players who have played, who are now living, maybe there's some indicators that we can pick up on with these biomarkers. So we were able to influence that population of former players to participate in the trial, in so much that we were able to get over 1,100 patients enrolled in less than a year. Now, you're a guy, you know what that's like. That's like on speed dial, right? It normally takes a lot longer to enroll a population of that size. So we ended up winning an award in New York. I didn't know what I was doing. All I was doing was helping to tell a story. All I wanted to do was help our client, but I also wanted to help that group of former players, because I told them, I said, do you know that most of the drugs that you use now for things that we treat every day, someone had to go through a clinical trial in order to make that drug available for us, right? So what are we going to do for the next generation of people? What are we willing to do? It's not an invasive process. So what is it that we can do to help former players tomorrow and just people in the regular patient population? If we can move the needle that much to help people, if we can find treatments for Alzheimer's just by participating in a study like this, I mean, that's not a whole lot to ask. So a lot of people heard that message, and we did more than create a moment. We created a movement, and we've been duplicating that process for the last 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, from that humble beginning, I think what I see about Russo Partners and the work that you've done and from the work that we've done together is it sort of creates a conduit, right?
Yeah,
To the end user. The end user is the patient, right? The people that are
that's
out
right.
there, right? And
Mhm.
so you have a tremendous connection, with those people because we all sit around on Sunday and we want to watch the NFL and we're
Yeah,
fathers and brothers and sisters and all the
yeah,
things that we do. And so making that connection through those connections that you have really helps to spread the word about really important healthcare technologies. And that's the things that we've done together as well. So,
that's right.
really happy to have you on the team and leading that process to be able to share some really important medical messages for sure. Now, listen, Solly, it's the NFL season. It is about time. We've been on the sideline now for months. It is time for us to get excited. Training camps are happening. So the first preseason games are going to be tonight as well. But look, I
Yeah.
thought we'd give a little something back to our listeners and our followers here on the Ortho Show. And I thought, some fantasy football drafts are coming up. We'd like you to give us some analysis of some of the high impact players that are going to be coming out. Specifically, a lot of people get moved to new teams with free agency. We've got new coaches that are coming on. We've got some holdouts, but some expectations of the high impact players and maybe a rookie, impact player that you think is going to make a difference this year. Let's start with quarterback. What are you thinking at the quarterback position this year?
Caleb Williams with the Chicago Bears is expected. Look, we don't know how many games he's going to win, but there's never before in the 105-year history of the NFL has a rookie quarterback who was taken with the first overall pick. Because usually that player is going to a really bad team, right? That's why the team has the first overall selection. That we've never seen a quarterback be surrounded by this kind of talent. He's going to have some of the best receivers in Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. He's got one of the best running backs, Andre Swift. I'm telling you right now, there's no reason why he can't throw for over 4,000 yards and have the kind of season we saw last year from CJ Stroud, which no one predicted, by the way. And the reason why is because it's impossible. You can't expect a rookie quarterback to perform at that level, let alone win games and take your team to a division title and win in the playoffs, which is what CJ Stroud did. I'm not suggesting that Chicago's going to win that many games or they'll win in the postseason, but I do believe Caleb Williams is keen enough, talented enough that if you have him as your fantasy quarterback, he's gonna put some numbers on the board for you because they're gonna let him throw it as much as he wants.
I love it. So I know that people are scrambling for paper and pen right now to try and grab some of these, really high quality picks. What do you think about Aaron Rodgers? Is he going to have a year this year?
Aaron Rodgers will light it up. Now, the one thing the injury thing can bite anyone at any time, Scott. Last year, 66 different quarterbacks started for the 32 teams just to get through the season, just to get through a 17-game regular season. Those 17 teams started a combination of 66 quarterbacks. The year before that, in 2022, it was an NFL record 68 quarterbacks started. So as we sit here and have this conversation, injury's going to strike. We just don't know where. We just don't know where. I think it's safe to bet on Aaron Rodgers because it bit so early last year, 4 plays into the season. He's 40 years old. But everyone will tell you that Aaron Rodgers is an outlier. This guy, he throws the ball so well. His mechanics are so good. That's what puts him above almost any other quarterback who's ever played the game. He has this casual sort of elegance about himself, right? When he talks, he's such a cool, calm, demeanored player. Rarely do you see him yelling, screaming, shouting, because he's always under control. But I'm gonna tell you right now, this guy's a stone cold killer, and I'm predicting he'll throw for over 4,000 yards this year. There's no doubt. They improved the offensive line around him in front of him. The wide receivers they got better, and this guy Brees Hall, the running back, is ready to have a breakout season. I think is maybe as good as Christian McCaffrey if he stays healthy.
That's awesome. And I mean, Aaron Rodgers is like a coach on the field, right? I mean, he
Yes.
literally has so much knowledge of football. He sees the formations. He knows what the other coach is thinking. I mean, it's really awesome. All right, so you brought up Brees Hall. Let's stay with running backs. You know,
Yeah.
give us another breakout running back that you think is going to have a great year this year.
I think Brees Hall is the breakout guy. He's because he's been in this league for 2 years. He's yet to rush over 1,000 yards. His rookie season, he was well on his way, and then he blew his knee out. And then last year, he came on, he overcame the knee injury. As you well know, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It takes a little bit longer to come back from that injury. But when Aaron went down, teams were able to focus on stopping him, and he came just shy of 1,000 yards again. If Aaron's in the backfield, Brees Hall will feast against light boxes of 6 defenders in the box trying to tackle him. And I think he'll just eat it up. He's my breakout back. But if you want to know who's week to week going to be your fantasy leader in the backfield, it's one Christian McCaffrey. He's the guy. He's the GOAT. There's no doubt.
I mean, you watched the film of him when he was 10 years old. He was great back then, you know? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
really amazing to see him, although he got married. So who knows? Maybe he's going to slow down a little bit. I don't know. You never know, right? But
Nah, he'll just spend more time in the building. He'll spend more time at work.
that's right. I love it. I love it. All right, wide receiver, a lot of action going on, right? CeeDee Lamb is holding out at this point for the Cowboys. He's off the active roster. I mean, what do you got for us at wide receiver?
Look, CeeDee Lamb, I think he will end up playing for the Dallas Cowboys before it's all said and done. Brandon Ayuk, I think he's the wild card. He could end up in Pittsburgh. I think where he really wants to end up is with the Washington Commanders because Adam Peters, the general manager, worked in the front office with the 49ers when they drafted him in 2020 at Arizona State. And just so happens his quarterback at Arizona State at the time was the rookie quarterback, Dayton Daniels, who's now with the Washington Commanders. So I think that's where he really would want to be. He's doing his best to kind of conceal that because if you start to give too much, the team may not want to give you what you want. But I think in a perfect world, if he's not in San Francisco, he'd want to be there. But look, the wide receiver that for me is just made for fantasy football is Tyreek Hill. And he's in an offense that's made for fantasy football. It's a track meet. They have on football cleats, but it's a track meet between he and Jalen Waddle and Tua throwing the ball. It's going to be more of what you saw last year. And Tyreek Hill, remember, he missed the game or he would have had 2,000 yards receiving. So I think if he plays in every game, he may go ahead and set that single season record.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, let's move to tight end. What do you got for us there?
Nobody better than Travis Kelce. Kelsey's the guy. I can't even say there's a sleeper unless you would have to go with one of the young guys like Sam Laporta with the Detroit Lions, who, by the way, set rookie records for what he did last year. And I think he's only going to be better this year. And because his head coach is a former tight end, they're going to make sure Sam Laporta gets the ball. Now, George Kittle, I absolutely love, but Kittle's starting to break down a little bit. He's coming up lame and injured, banged up, even though I absolutely love him. I just don't know if he's going to be able to play in all 17.
I mean, that tight end position is hard, right? I mean, they're coming across the middle. They're getting banged up. They're big. They're tall people. They're getting
Yeah.
injured, right? Plus the blocking schemes as well. So tight ends don't last that long. I'm thinking like a Mark Bavaro, right? One of the classics, back in the day when I was growing up for the Giants. But great stuff. All right, we're gonna end about here pretty soon here, Solly. But give us a team or two that you're looking at this year that you think has just got that right mix just to sort of make a difference this year moving forwards.
I got to start right here locally with my Cincinnati Bengals because think about it. It was a team last year that had a winning record despite losing their quarterback, Joe Burrow, for the final 7 games of the season. And yet they finished with a winning record, but they didn't make the playoffs. The defense is going to be better this year. I thought they didn't perform as well last year defensively as they had in the previous 2 years. So they made some movements. They brought in Sheldon Rankins. They brought in 2 new safeties, and they're going to be much better in the secondary. But Joe Burrow is a stone cold killer. His only equal is, of course, Patrick Mahomes. And he's in the 4 games when they've gone head to head, he's won 3 of the 4. So just something to pay attention to. Listen, I'm never going to bet against Lamar Jackson because this guy is a competitor. And now he's got Derrick Henry in the backfield with him. And they still have a really good defense. So when you're that good at running the ball, and you have that good of a defense, you're going to win a lot of games. The Kansas City Chiefs are trying to be the first team in NFL history to three-peat as Super Bowl champions. I think they're better this year than they were a year ago. You got to look at this. They got rid of Tyreek Hill and then won 2 straight Super Bowls. Who does that? Who does that? They send their best player, arguably their best player, Packard, and they win 2 straight Super Bowls. But now they've been able to replace him with vertical speed down the field with the rookie from Texas, Xavier Worthy. They also have Marquise Hollywood Brown. Those are your 3 teams in the AFC, and I think one of those 3 are going to win it. The NFC, it's your standard teams. It's Dallas, it's Philly, and it's the San Francisco 49ers. But I do think the teams in the AFC are bringing it, and they've got just a more perfect picture of what you want your team to look like. So one of those 3, either the Ravens, the Bengals, or the Chiefs. And if the Chiefs win it, they'll be making history, man. And by the way, hard to beat Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you got Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce out there selling jerseys. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff going on. But look, it's been 6 months since the Super Bowl, right? We've all been sitting back and waiting. Tonight's the first preseason game for a number of the teams, so we're super excited that the NFL season is starting again for sure.
I'm excited, and I put in a lot of work during the season, but it's a lot of fun. I still enjoy it just as much as when I used to nestle up in front of the television set when I was a little kid. This is Shakespearean, right? It's like, you're going to get a cliffhanger. You're going to get a come from behind victory. Somebody's going to upset somebody. It doesn't matter how good your team is. You can lose on any given Sunday. It's all there every single week, and that's why we love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. My father played in the Baltimore Colts marching band in the late 50s. And so as soon as my brother and I were born, he bought 2 seats at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, and he started taking us when we were 4 years old. One sat in the lap and the other one walked in with them. And we've been loving football in my family ever since. And so, listen, Solomon Wilcots, we love you for the NFL. We're so proud of the hard work that you're doing in the healthcare technology space and being able to really share messaging to patients at a level that they can understand it. Nobody does that better than you. What a pleasure it is to have you on the show. And I'm looking forward to Super Bowl Radio Row again with you, hopefully this year as well. What do you say?
Oh, we got to do it again. So let's make it happen.
All right.
Thanks for having me, Scott. Appreciate it.
No, you're fantastic. Solomon Wilcots. This is Dr. Scott Sigman. #FollowTheFro, host of The Ortho Show. Till next time.